So anyway, yeah, we're happy to have the beekeepers here, Linda and her husband Ken. And the title of her presentation today is Beyond the Fourth Grade, Bees for Grown-ups. So Linda Reavley will show and tell us the story of beekeeping and her experiences with these delightful and important fellow travelers. Linda has been keeping bees since the early 1970s. Her husband Ken Fowkes has also been infected with the same passion and have enjoyed a long tenure as president and vice president of Sierra Foothill Beekeepers Association. Linda's joy and enthusiasm about these fascinating organisms continues, and information that continues to be discovered delights her. So, with that, I'll introduce her and they're ready to go.
Thank you. We've got looking through a lot of papers recently and realized that we have had bee licenses since 1971, which was the year we actually met. And right after we met, I was in my Mother Earth stage. We met at the Renaissance Fair. And so I said, I want to learn how to keep bees. He says, oh, you know, Herbert, the guy downstairs, we both worked at the medical center at the University of Utah. Herbert keeps bees, go talk to Herbert. Oh, Herbert was wonderful. So I immediately brought myself down to see Herbert, who was in fact, this is so lovely, the deaner for the Department of Anatomy. The deaner is the person who takes care of the cadavers. Oh. And Herbert was Dutch. He was very Dutch. He had been in Holland during the war. He joined Hitler Youth so they could have food. Herbert was very Dutch, charming man. And he took me under his wing and taught me about queens and swarms and helped find the beehives for me to have in my yard when I finally had my own yard in a reasonable place. And not soon after that, I said to my dear husband here, you gotta help me, these things are very heavy. And he's been doing it ever since. And recently, I think I've moved over to helping him because he is the president of Sierra Foothill Beekeepers Association, and I'm vice president. I have been education director, but that got boring and I wanted to be vice president. And nobody said no.
Can you hear her back there?
Yes, no, just fine. Thank you.
You said we don't have Gregory. We don't have microphones, do we, Gregory?
No.
No. Okay, sorry.
I'll speak up. I am a retired teacher and also dog obedience trainer. And generally people can hear me in adjoining counties.
That's good.
So, you know, if I yell sit very precipitously, please do. All right. So we have, oh honey, that's my honey, about beekeeping and bees in the busy life. And we are busy. Bees keep us busy from, probably the middle of March until the end of October. And that's because we have the phone number that everyone calls, mostly with trouble with hummingbirds. I probably answer 4 hummingbird calls a week in the summer. The big information is, please just wash out your hummingbird feeders and take them down, wash them out, move them 10 feet from where they were last time, put them back up, and the bees won't find them for 3 or 4 days, and then take them down and do it again. It works really well. Bees are preferential feeders, and they will go to one place over and over and over until it's gone, which is why your hummingbird feeder looks like it's been bobbed by bees, is because they told all their friends. And that's what happens. Okay, of course this is going to work.
Yeah, it'll work.
There we are. Okay, humans have had a very long relationship with bees. This is this slightly fuzzy picture is a cave in Spain. It's called Cueva de los Arañas. Los Arañas are big white spiders.
Oh,
No kidding, they're like this big.
wow, got chill.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I may keep bees, but I'm not walking around in a cave with spiders. And this is speaking to someone who used to be a caver. Not spiders, no. Okay, this is the lady of, what's she called? I can't remember. She's collecting honey. We say she's a lady. Most people say that's a man. I do not believe that's a man. And there are several reasons. First of all, no man is going to climb up a big old long tall ladder to get honey. He's going to say, honey, ladder, go. Second of all, that's kind of hips for a guy. That just looks like a woman to me. And third of all, in most history, women have been the beekeepers in most cultures. Someone figured out that they had good attention for detail. And beekeeping and even bee robbing requires good attention to detail. Which is why I think that's the lady. She's as much as this painting is the oldest representation we have of beekeeping, and that we think it was painted 8,000 years ago. So,
Can I ask a question?
sure,
Well, do you know what she did to keep from getting stung?
she didn't.
She didn't. So
No.
she was in harmony with the bees somehow, and they let her take the honey?
And most people, let's just put it this way. Honey is the sweetest thing that people had before refined sugar turned around. They would put up with a tremendous amount of pain and discomfort for honey. It has been incredibly valuable. And sometimes in some periods more valuable than its weight in gold. And people would put up with a lot of pain to get it. This kind of funny looking little basket thing she's got right here. They still make those in Spain. They have a specific name, which I don't remember, but, and then we see the bees are all flying around.
Very big bees.
Very big bees, very small person, but I guess if you have to climb up to paint the painting, it's hard to make tiny little bees very impressive, so there you go. She reaches into the little cave. Bees will set up in caves. They like caverns and caves. That's one of the natural places for wild bees to set up hives. So there she is. That's next slide.
If I can get it to move.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see. I have to, where's my cursor? There we go.
Okay.
I'll do it that way.
Why are beehives shaped the way they are? We have these things out in the fields, are these big square things. We have some I'm going to show you in a few minutes from ancient cultures. But what do you see in that picture? Generally, trees. Any one of those trees could have a beehive in it. You people mostly probably all live in Tuolumne County. We have a lot of old oaks in Tuolumne County. Many of them have beehives. Oak forests are one of the prime bee habitats in the world. And since our bees, our honeybees came from Europe, there are no native European honeybees. European goes in there, and it's really important. When we got the bees here, they set up in oak trees because that's their natural habitat. As an oak tree gets older, water will infiltrate through places where branches are broken off, and fungus will eat out a cavity inside the tree. The bees find this cavity, clean the fungus out, line the entire interior surface with propolis, which we think of as a bee product, but it's actually just tree sap that the bees gather, which is both bactericidal and fungicidal. The entire inside becomes hard and smooth. Fungus doesn't grow. The bees thrive. They like trees. Trees are their natural habitat. Think about it. It's air conditioned in the summer because the tree pumps water up and cools itself. It's warm in the winter when the sap falls. That's still insulating. Wood is very insulative. And they have ventilation, all the things that bees need. It needs to be relatively dry, it needs to have good ventilation, and it needs to be reasonably temperate. So let's look again at what we see. This is from Tel Rehove. This is a beehive. It's a man-made beehive from 900 before Common Era. That's a long time ago, folks. That is a really long time ago. It's a thing about this long. It's about this big around. These are combs that people have in those. They still keep them this way in Egypt to a certain extent, mostly to impress tourists, but they still do it. And so there we have this thing. When they opened these very ancient beehives, they actually found this is kind of residue. And when they ran DNA on it, it was bees. Dead bees from what, 2,900 years ago. Yep. Moving on. This is what they look like when they were stood up in patterns. Obviously, they did not have cinder blocks, but this is what the beehives look like in situ when they were being used. This is sometimes bees we think that was beeswax that just naturally forms on the end. But what does that thing look like? That cylinder? How about a tree trunk?
Piece of log.
Yeah, it's a tree trunk. That's what bees want. That's what people said. Bees live there. I'm making that. We're going to be fine. Ancient Egypt. These are the ones they have in Egypt. Like I say, mostly for tourists, but these things work. You can keep bees in these little tubes. Those are Egyptian folks making them, and those are Egyptian folks putting in little packages of bees to have the beehives work. And that's, it's a very reconstructed painting from inside a tube. Oh, incidentally, I'm an anthropologist by training. Archaeology, anthropology, those are my jams. So here we have the Egyptians doing their beehive thing over here. And I love this little device. Not quite sure what the heck that is, but I think it scrapes comb out of the beehive. I think it's a scraper. This guy is dumping honey into this larger container, and these are all etched into the wall beside him, bees. That is from the temple of Nuseri Ini, who was a pharaoh of Egypt. His temple is called the Sun Temple. And there's a lot of bee hieroglyphs around. And just in case you think this doesn't happen in the New World, that's a Mayan beehive. Mayan beehives, you say? But I thought bees were not native. And honeybees aren't. But stingless bees living in Central America produce extremely tiny amounts of honey. And the Maya were so involved in the keeping of beehives that there were entire communities that were just now beginning to discover where they have these things. And people say, what the heck is this thing? That is an ancient Mayan beehive. Has a little hole in the side and 2 plugs for either end. These are not the normal bees that you think of as bees. These are stingless bees, American bees. The most common ones are called Melipona. The most common one of those is Melipona beechii. I have a picture of them. That's a Melipona beechii right here. She makes the tiniest little droplet of honey you can practically imagine. And the Mayan, and again, it's mostly ladies who do this, had little tiny spoons that took forever for people to figure out what the heck they were looking at. They kept saying Coke spoons? I don't know. I don't know what that could be. They're honey spoons. And they find these little tiny carved bone spoons for collecting the honey. This is what a wild one of these beehives looks like from these bees. These are Melipona here. This is not a Melipona, but this is also a very common one for people to collect honey from, whose name is Try something or other, and I can't quite remember what it is because it's really long. But there we are. Maya's had glyphosate bees. You see them here. There he is, honey. There he is with honey. The gods love their honey. Was a common thing to sacrifice to the gods. This, I know this looks like something with 3 rockets, right? Actually, if you look at it differently, this is the head. Here's the front legs. There's the back legs. These are the wings, and that's the body. And this one works the same way. It's a bit stranger looking face, but there's its eyes, here's its front legs. These are its back legs, these are the wings, body, more back legs. So beekeeping was common in Central America. These bees exist up into Mexico and through all of Central America. And there are Mayan communities still who keep bees and who have made quite a tourist attraction out of this whole thing. You can buy little tiny bottles of honey from these bees. But these are not the only bees in the world that people keep. That is an Apis cerana. You can tell better on this picture, I think, what they're like. They look very much like our honeybees, except those stripes are a lot finer and narrower. These are Southeast Asian Apis cerana, but they exist all up into China, over in India, all the way through up into Japan, down through, well, here's the Philippines, here's Java, Malaysia. Apis cerana are very much like European honeybees. They make honey. They keep them in these cute little hives that are about this big, like our big boxes. There's their little. They get into them about once a week and take the honey off them. We visited. We went to a farm in Thailand when we were there and saw this all happen. We were going to bring home honey, but somehow or another, if you don't have it in your suitcase, you can't get it through customs. They take it away from you. So there's a European, or these are not European bees. These are Asian honeybees. We found them. I said to Ken, I think that's an Apis cerana. And he looks at me like I just recently lost my mind. Because I was looking at a Coke machine that was out of not being used, but it was dripping. And this thing was just covered in these little bees. About the same size as our bees. They can sting you. But they looked, I mean, I saw pictures, so my brain immediately figured it out. And we were both quite delighted. So, moving. Bees live in trees. Well, we figured that out. Our ancient ancestors figured that out. But there are people in many places. This happens to be in the United States somewhere, as you can tell by the discarded coffee or drink cup behind it. That people think that keeping bees in trees is fascinating. It's so cool. Well, it's cool right up to the point where you cannot collect honey from these guys. And if anything goes wrong, you can't do much to fix it because it's in a tree. That's the natural tree where bees live. You can't do much to do that either. And moving on to the medieval period of bee management. Love this picture. Is that a great little picture? What are those people doing? Well, they seem to be hauling around bee skeps, these things, which are, skep is Old Norse for basket. That makes sense? So they have these skeps and they have on a little woven thing over their faces, so they aren't getting stung on the face. And they're pulling the honey out of the skeps. Bee skep management is dreadful. It's such a mess. In order to get the honey out of the skep, you have to destroy the hive. But the other side of the coin is that bee skeps promote bees to swarm all the time and reproduce themselves and be able to be caught up into new skeps. Would bee skeps work here? Our friend Betty Hensley called me up one day and said, we have a bee job we have to go to in Jamestown. Okay, We get to Jamestown and find out that bees have set up in someone's flower pot. It's upside down, it's about this big. And sure enough, there's bees living in there. And so we, dear husband, got a piece of plywood, we slid it underneath this thing, took it up to Betty's house, slid the piece of plywood off, put this thing on a box in her backyard with bees in it. And the bees eventually moved down out of the pot all by themselves and began to go comb in the box below. And then we took the pot with its now abandoned comb away, and it worked. And that would work for skips as well. Whoa, where are you going?
That's the next one. Oh, let's see. Get you back where you were.
Thank you.
I don't know where we were at this point.
You're going the wrong way.
Okay, that must be it. Okay, that's it. We'll get you back.
You're way in the back now. Okay.
I was going the right way to start with. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, I was going the right way before.
Our woven baskets. It's really against the law to keep them in steps, despite what some people do. Steps promote disease, they promote. It's very hard on the food. You have to get the bottom of them. I have no idea.
Let me get
what
it back
that
on
is.
slideshow here. Oh, there we go to admit somebody too.
I'll just double check and see.
But
Okay.
so we don't like steps, we don't like keeping them in trees either. I have trunks with bees in my yard. And that's because we get a lot of calls from
Slideshow, I guess.
services. Oh my gosh, we got bees in a tree, blah, blah, blah. So we go over there, we go, yeah,
Yeah.
we got bees in a tree, yes, you do. What's your plan? And they go, no.
That's what we're, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Why don't you cut the section of trunk out that has the bees in it and bring it to our yard? And we will tip it up on its side and put a piece of plywood on to keep the weather out of the top and see what happens. Well, we now have 2 hives up in our yard living just like that. One of them's been there a couple of years and one of them a year. And it works. We can't ever get honey out of it, but we may be able to get swarms out of it. Which could, then we could put those in more conventional beehives. And those bees didn't die. And the people taking them out of the trees didn't get all stung. So we thought that was pretty fair deal.
So they actually cut a section of the tree out.
Yep, they put ropes around them. I mean, maybe you've seen people do this, who's cutting trees down, they actually tie them and then they
Yeah.
drop them. Well, they tie them and they cut them and they drop them into the back of a pickup truck, generally ours. And we take them home and then we have them come, because they often have ways to lift logs. And then we get them to lift the log out and stand it up for us. And then we have them in the yard. Those are scaps.
I'm sorry, what about, I've seen or heard of people having them in trees before, this was in the Bay Area. And some company would come out and I don't know whether they used smoke or what they did, but they got all the bees out. Do you do that?
You know what they did? They killed them.
Oh,
That's the only way to get them out of trunks very successfully. We've tried trap outs with tree trunks, which is where you make it so the bee can't get back, they can't get out or get back in, only can get out. Well, it's very difficult with an oak tree. There are a lot of little holes in oak trees. And bees can get out those holes and back in, and they will almost immediately if you seal up their hole. Smoke does not charm bees, it confuses them. That's its real function. Bees are chemical, they deal a lot of their lives with chemistry. Because they live in totally dark places. And so the chemistry in smoke just confuses them. When we smoke a hive, when we get into it, one of the real, the things we tell everyone, wait till they quit looking at you. You smoke them until they quit looking at you, because you can tell if they're looking at you. Once they quit looking at you, then you can move around and do whatever you need to do. The smoke is not, that's not a way, you can't charm them. I'm not the Pied Piper of bees, I really can't. We've tried a bazillion different things to get bees out of trees. And mostly not terribly successfully. It's really important, yes.
I see the videos where they use the vacuum cleaner.
We
Does that-
we do
Does that
vacuum.
kill them? Or,
No,
yeah, I see a lot of videos with
Vacs.
the vac them out.
bee vacuum. We do vacuum bees. And it's very, the last ones we vacuumed out of the tree at the fire station down on 132. And we vacuumed and vacuumed and vacuumed and vacuumed. And we thought we had pretty much most of the bees out of there, but, you know, then all the ones that were out foraging just all showed up too. And it just didn't work very well. So eventually, we also put water in the tree and filled the water up to push the bees out. But the water comes out the bottom as well. So it's very difficult to get them out of trees. It just is.
By the way, that's the talk next week in Fiddletown on Wednesday. It's about bee rescue, so.
So.
Yeah.
In the Middle Ages,
Yeah.
we kept bees in these skeps.
Yeah.
These were the most common ways to keep bees, and as I told you before, probably most of this was either done by monks or women. Monks kept bees because honey was valuable, and beeswax is supposed to be the purest possible thing with which to make candles to have in the church. And many churches today still use pure beeswax for candles. Almost all Orthodox churches do. And most Catholic churches do as well. It smells really nice. They don't smoke. They're lovely candles. They're really expensive, but they're really nice. So monks kept bees and women kept bees. And ordinary people kept bees for the honey and to sell the wax to the church. Ooh, okay, tear the bottom off the skep. That's what we want to see. Each one of these is bee comb, covered in bees, obviously. And in order to get the honey out and the wax, you just have to get up in there and pull it out. Those Egyptians had those little hooky things to do it with. Most us Europeans, not so smart, we just used our arms. So, but skeps cause swarming. That's a really nice picture of a bee swarm. But they cause swarming because you can't grow your beehive in there very far. It's a very limited environment. It's kind of the bare minimum for bees to be happy. In a skep that's about this tall and up this way. And when things go wrong and the bees swarm, apparently, I love this picture. It is very old. This picture is probably from maybe between 1100 and 1200. This guy has gone and gotten his wife, who apparently has a baby. And he says, the bees are swarming, the bees are swarming. And so she wraps the baby up in her shawl and trots out there to the beehive. And she's chasing them back in with her shawl. And with a poem, which I'll read to you in just a minute, she's chasing them in. He, on the other hand, is running around with a sickle. Lord knows what he's gonna do with that sickle. You even get those bees back in there. So there he is, the disturbed middle-aged couple trying to get the bees back into the hive. But we have a charm. In the entire Middle Ages, we had charms for everything. There were little poems, there are little prayers. Our nursery rhymes are kind of a holdover of medieval charm poetry. This one is a charm text for getting your bees back in the beehive. It says, "Sitte ye sijuifa, sigoda eorden, ne frege de wilde et winter vlugen. Dio swea jamida, mina godessa, schwa bidaman gohelle, mita e etheria." Which means, you didn't get that? Which means, settle down, you victory women, siege wives, settle down, you victory women, sink to earth, never be wild and fly to the woods. Be mindful of my welfare, as each man is a border and home.
That old English or?
It was Old English. Probably the other Old English that I generally can pull up is this. Feder ura, thou art in Hiopinum, Gehergod estenama. You recognize that?
No.
The hair got this down now, man.
Yes. It's our father born. Gehele God is Tanam. Gehele God is like victory songs to God. Gehele is Tanam is your name. Romantic pictures of a brutal way to keep bees. I like all of these for various reasons. First of all, these are little rain hats for your bee skips. Because they do very badly in rain, they do kind of get all soggy and messy. So these are cute little rain hats in the hollyhocks. This one has its own little stand, very nice. And that woman, Lord knows what's wrong with her, has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those things right outside her front door. Now, there's bees there all the time. The reason she looks so nonchalant is she's bruised. She's been keeping these probably for a whole life. We have lovely pictures of Victorian women wearing the most outrageous hoop skirts, etc., all running around with these big sun hats with veils on them, chasing bees around. It's like, okay. Jamestown, the Jamestown settlers, bees came with the Jamestown settlers and later with the Plymouth Pilgrims. The Jamestown settlers, remember they disappeared, blah, blah, blah. They brought bees with them. Those bees all kind of got loose with the Jamestown settlers and disappeared essentially. Except that Indians up and down the coast, all the way back up to Massachusetts and all the way back, by the time the Plymouth Pilgrims arrived, probably 150 years later, we're calling these things the white men's flies. They really didn't like that because they sting. So they brought brown bees. Now, can you imagine? They were hauling them around in those skeps, the straw skeps. And these are brown bees. And brown bees have all disappeared in this country. Brown bees are grumpy. Brown bees are not as effective at doing honey as our bees are. But that's what they had. These are Nordic brown bees that still exist in Scandinavia and northern Germany, Denmark, northern Germany. We have Italian bees and Carniolan bees, and a mix of them. All the bees we see in RV hives are very mixed breed affairs. You have really dark ones, you have beautiful little yellow ones, the Italians. You have ones with lots of really dark stripes, or just a few really dark stripes. We have real mutts, but they work well where we are. And that's true of bees all the way across North America. And remember to keep them in Canada too. It's not just, you don't have to keep them all that warm. Even though everyone I know gets hysterical this time of year that they're going to freeze the bees, they're not. Bees are pretty good at managing this stuff. So that pink area is the distribution of Apis mellifera, the common bee, the common honeybee that we think of. South America, most of North America, all the way up to the very northern part. Everything except the deserts in Africa and the really cold parts of Russia and northern China, Australia, are all bees. But these bees are not all the same. They have different variants. Mellifera, which includes those brown bees, is Northern Europe. Iberica, of course, are the bees of Spain. Linguistica and Carnica are the two kinds that we end up with in the United States. Because up until after 1920 or so, we were not allowed to import any more bees, but we had imported a lot of bees from Italy and a lot of bees from Eastern Europe. Hardy, docile, honey productive, good quality basic bees. But we don't have any new genetics, and we haven't since 1920. So when our bees were beset with varroa mites, with various kinds of bee diseases, we didn't have a lot of genetics to rely on. And that's one of the reasons that bees each one of these things has been kind of a big hit. Bees have made their way back every time. We still have a lot of bees. We don't have any great shortage of them. Probably have more of them than we need if you want to look at the native populations. But there we are. So there's Macedonian bees, there's all kinds of bees. Here's the local, we call this interbreeding, we call these local bees. That was right over on Hess Avenue. I think it's one of the cutest word pictures I've ever gotten. You like that one? It's a heart of honeybees. The guy who had it in his yard said, "Oh no, I called my friend, he's going to take them, you can leave now." After he got us over there. Bees are a center of innovation. Francois Hubert invented the book hive in the 1700s. He was this very charming Frenchman who apparently married a very charming woman who let him keep bees to his heart's content, and he had a big thing for bees. And he invented this cute little beehive that has hinges, and it closes up, and the bees can come and go, and they build their comb in there. But then you can open it up and look at it and study them. And it's such a cute little thing. That's what the Francois Hubert dotting looks like. But our beehives were designed and really invented by Lorenzo Limestrom, the Reverend Lorenzo L. Limestrom, who looks like a much more charming person than he actually was. I think he was pretty grumpy. But he invented this wonderful hive that's really pretty brilliant, because he looked at all these bees and how they worked and said, these bees need about 3/8 of an inch of space to get around. And if we make their hive so that they have this space, this bee space, this is his big invention or his big discovery, then we can really successfully raise these bees in boxes. And pretty good sized boxes at that. And so he invented this lime straw hive, which in a one that's like that, these deep boxes on the bottom have several little frames like this with wax on them. You can either put wax on them or let the bees do it. They will do it. And you can put between 8 and 10 of them in one of those boxes. We use 8 because we like to have, we like to be able to move them around a little bit if we want to. And with 10, it's a little harder. You have a few more problems. But we put wax in ours, not necessarily a full sheet, but at least some, because we have had folks at Bee Club who opened up their box and realized that the bees built in there diagonally between all the little frames, so you can't pull them out. They have to come out in one big lump. Bees make their own furniture, and they will make it the way they want it. So you want to give them some pretty good hints, like, we would like you to go back and forth, please. And it's very helpful. So good old Lorenzo really changed modern beekeeping, and this is kind of a lot of where we are now.
What year was that?
1820 something, I think. It's quite a while ago. So that gets us to where we are now. And we have a lot of people who use different kinds of hives. This is a top frame or top bar hive. These things were designed for use in Africa originally, and South America, where most bees want to live in downed trees. Well, that's like a downed tree. The frames are in it. When they go out, they make their own wax. It hangs down on little top bars. And a lot of people say, oh, they're the newest, coolest things. This is sort of like the modern hippy dippy beehive of all time. Not real successful. A lot of bees die most of them live here. It's just too cold. There's too much space on the outside, not enough insulation. But, you know, people like them. Those other things are, what are those called? Warre hives. Warre hives have the cutest little doors where you can open up and see what's going on inside. You still have to take them apart to do a lot with them, but you can observe them through the little doors. They're very heavily insulated, and they too are top bar hives, where you just have the bar across the top and the bees build their own wax and comb. Eastern Europeans still like things that look like tree trunks. You see whole forests of them. Again, they have to rip them apart. Some of them actually are now built in with frames, that little narrow ones on the one side to the bigger in the middle. But you still, you know, it's still very different from what we do. Yeah.
Are those kind the ones where they're gonna have to swarm when you?
They do force them to swarm quite a bit. They do. This is a bee house, as is this little picture here. These are pretty pretty common in Slovenia where they have tons of bee fodder all summer long. I mean, every field is full of beautiful little blooming flowers that bees like and orchards and all that stuff that provides food for the bees. We don't have that kind of food here. We have food in and very end of April, first part of May, first part of June, about June 15th, it starts to taper off because it gets hot. And then it comes back up again in September. So we don't have that kind of year-round massive amounts of bee food available. And we have to watch our bees and be careful that we leave them enough food and we take care of their dietary needs or they're gonna die. I love bee houses though, they're so cute. There are places in Germany and Austria and in Slovenia where you can actually rent a place that has a little kind of like hotel on this part where you can sleep above the bees because they will tell you, and I have no evidence to or against this, that the vibration of the bees will help make you healthier.
No.
Somehow I
So is that like the size of a cabin? I don't know.
It is.
Okay.
It's the size of a smallish garage that one. But because the boxes are about. this
Mhm.
big.
A lot of them are the same size as like sheep herder
Caravan.
caravans, because then they can move them around. Some of them have wheels on them, so they can move them from place to place.
But I think they're wildly romantic and totally cute. They just won't work here. So 8 to 12,000 years of associating with bees, whoops, has made the PowerPoint go much faster than I
Yeah.
expected.
Yep, I lost it again.
Yeah.
Yep, let's see, I'm going the wrong way. Why it jumps the wrong way, which is, I don't understand. Yeah,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
just about there.
No, that's it. Okay, can we go back, please?
Yep, let's see if I can get you back.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see.
So we've been doing this for 12,000 bees in some kind of tubes, boxes.
There we go.
logs,
Get this
baskets, stuff.
just about back.
We're getting closer.
Yep.
Is there a shortage of bees in the United States or in the world right now? What's the situation?
Not really.
No?
I mean, there are a lot of bees out there. What there's a shortage of is native bees.
Might be click
Because
here.
these European bees.
Oh,
You
okay.
can click there, you can do the
Okay.
forward and back.
Okay, let's forward and backwards was better. Yeah, thanks.
You've probably seen 3 or 4, well, probably 30 or 40 different kinds of native bees in your lifetime, and you didn't even recognize them. But we all know those big black carpenter bees. Those are native bees. They pollinate like crazy. They have a wonderful technique that I think is totally funny. You know, most so many native plants here have tubular flowers like penstemon and they cut a little hole in the side of it because they're too big to get into the flower itself. So they just cut a little hole in the side and suck out the nectar.
I have them on my house, they're inside my exercise bike.
Yes, I can imagine they are.
They keep coming there.
Because you gotta plug up the hole.
Oh, no, I want to save them.
No, you don't need to save them. These carpenter bees are wildly
Yeah,
successful.
they're on the bike, yeah, they come in the year.
Yeah, put a little steel wool in those holes.
Okay.
That works really
I
well.
don't want to get rid of them.
But science is our guidepost for showing us what we're doing wrong and what we're doing right. Obviously, science says skeps bad, other things better. Which I believe to be the truth. So here are some myths. Do all bees sting? No. A lot of native bees don't sting. Bumblebees can sting, but they don't. Not very often anyway. You have to really pick up a bumblebee and pinch it to get it mad at you enough to sting you. The big black ones, the carpenter bees will sting, but again, you have to irritate them. If you just, you know, I have them walk across my hands sometimes when I'm gardening, and it's not a big thing, but all bees don't sting, but honeybees can, and can they sting their targets over and over? Oh, yeah, they can. And you know how? If you are so relaxed So when the bee stings you, you relax your skin. The bee can pull her stinger out and fly away. The only reason she loses her stinger is that we tense up, well, I do. And when the bee tries to pull away, she pulls her stinger off. Her stinger is a modified ovipositor. All those bees that you see out there that can sting you are girls. Boy bees can't sting, only girl bees, because the stinger is the ovipositor, the egg depositor. That if she is, you know, if she were a queen bee, she would be using that to lay eggs into each individual little cell. But when things go wrong and you get a lady worker, and oh boy, things are wrong when you have them, because she never lays a fertilized egg, and she's never done it in her whole life, and she can only lay sterile eggs. Yes.
What happened with those horrible giant wasps that were coming in and killing whole hives of honeybees?
Murder wasps.
Yeah,
Murder wasps were a thing, and it's probably the first time in the history of US agriculture, we actually think we managed to kill them all. What they did is they put out bay hives, they followed these murder wasps back to their nests,
The flag on.
and they put RFDI little things on, they catch them and glue these little things to them and then follow them back, and we think we actually managed to kill them. Now, there are other wasps, and there's one coming in from the East Coast that are very destructive to bald-faced wasps that they have on the East Coast, very destructive to beehives. And we'll have to figure out what to do with those once they get here. So, yeah, but we think we got the murder wasps, at least for now. Oh my God, it's happening again.
Yep. have to-
Okay, wasps are bees.
Yep.
No. Wasps are wasps. Bees are bees. Wasps can have biting mouth parts. Bees only have sucking mouth parts.
Losing it.
They can't bite you with that. It's a long thing that tongue sticks out.
Yeah.
That's really
Thanks,
great.
babe. Get back to where
Um,
I've
No,
never
that's
had
fine.
this problem with our own computer.
but no, wasps.
Yeah, this is it,
sting-
got a touch screen and it seems to be released.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wasps.
And
are
then,
like-
yeah,
Wasps
just
are
here.
just
Yeah.
Okay.
incredible creatures that have their own mind habits.
Do wasps eat though other insects like mosquitoes or something, or?
Some do.
Wasps like protein, so they will eat small insects. Wasps, the reason we have so much problem with them, you know, like meat bees, quote unquote, meat bees are protein seeking in the fall. When they're trying to, the queens are trying to lay eggs for the next year. So that's why they just are such a pain in the fall.
are they a wasp?
They are,
A wasp. Yeah.
yep, meat bees are wasps.
I like to, when I used to garden and grow tomatoes and that, these wasps would be eating the little worms off to my tomato plant.
They
I
do.
saw them.
They do, regular paper wasps and daubers will both eat and are both really good at keeping in small insects out of your greenhouses, off your tomatoes. That unfortunately they'll sting you, but they do a good job on that other stuff. They
I just see
really
them
do.
going up and down looking, traveling all over the.
We have a friend who has a greenhouse on Peaceful Valley Road, and he keeps wasp nests in there all summer long. Because boy, they keep his greenhouse clean. They really do a good job. You can avoid bee stings by spraying them with water. No, you can't, it will just piss them off. Don't do that. All bees are sunny. Well, no. Only these little Central American ones and European honeybees and Apis ceranae and some other apises from Europe, from Asia, produce honey. But really, bees don't all produce honey. Bees are hard workers. Contrary to certain Victorian poems, how doth the little busy bee his golden hour improve, bees sleep a lot. They work very hard when they're awake, but they sleep a lot. And you can find them sometimes sleeping out in flowers. There's in fact some wild bees that preferentially sleep in flowers, which is kind of delightful to find early in the morning. Adult bees live a long time. No, 3 weeks.
Oh.
From the time they fly out of the hive, about 3 weeks. 3 weeks in the hive, 3 weeks out. So 6 weeks altogether for most of these lives. They don't have real long lives. They won't sting at night. Oh, yeah, they will. But believe me. And besides that, they don't fly very well at night unless they can get the light. They look like for lights on your house or even your car, or even your headlamp when you're trying to move bees at night, which we all try to do. But they crawl. It's not a living dead stuff. It's the most bizarre thing. They just come up and like buzzing and crawling. Most bees live in hives. No, most bees are wild. If you read your law. In the summer, and they mix it with the honey and the pollen to make food for the larvae. In fact, bees quit collecting nectar about noon every day and change over and start collecting water. So yeah, they need it. Sealing up a hole in the wall where the bees are nesting will kill the bees inside. No, they're just gonna come in other light to come in through electrical plugs and light fixtures and all kinds of weird things. Call us, we will come and help you figure it out, but don't seal them up, you'll have them in. They will just move right into your house and you go to the bathroom and it's all buzzy in there for something. Spray insecticide into the hole and kill the bees. Don't do that either. Beehives are generally arranged so that here's the hole and they build their comb across it this way. In hives, they build it the other way because we make them, but in nature, they're gonna build it across the opening of the hole. You spray in there, you get the outside of that one piece of comb and the bees all back here are still alive. And some of them kind of get sick from being sprayed, but a lot of them will survive. And they will spread that insecticide around the neighborhood. Not a good idea. Don't spray insecticide on bees. Just don't. You will, it's not only bad for the bees, it makes things worse for you because then we have to come and clean up and we don't want to clean up sick bees. We really don't. Why did I get into bees? Well, again, let's say I was doing my Mother Earth phase of my life and thought this would be a good thing since I already knew how to garden and could grow a garden. And I raised animals and I had butchered my own animals and I understood how to do that. And so what's next but masses of insects? And it's been fascinating. It's been a great ride. Bees have been one of the real joys of my life. I wasn't an insect person in college or high school. I didn't take, entomology. I took botany. I took human anatomy. I took geology, philosophy, English, history. Way too much, but had a good time in college. But bees are just so living, interesting. And the things we've learned about them are so interesting. Ken and I are bee buddies. He looks happy in that picture. That's his old bee dad. He's got a much nicer one now. I seem to be smiling too, but you can't really tell. And we're bee buddies, and that's because beehives are very heavy. And it really helps to have someone else help you with them. And it also helps, if you're working them by yourself, you tend to move too fast. And you're really most successful with bees if you are incredibly zen. You have to relax. Because they can help. And they change tone, don't they? When they're pissed with you, you hear it. They go from to it's very noticeable. I thought it was a great idea in about 1974 for us to move the bees to our new home, and so we did. And that's my original bee suit that he was wearing there. I don't know what we just skipped, but it's okay.
Yeah.
We both graduated from the UC Beekeeper program. That was a lot of fun. We did it during COVID, when instead of going to UC Davis to take our beekeeper test, we had to videotape each other doing all the stuff. And then like most old people have a lovely time trying to figure out how to download the damn thing on my website and Davis, it was lots of fun. I took it to Sacramento, handed it to my grandson and said, make it happen. He said, aye, aye, Captain. And it was over and we got great grades. It was wonderful, but that was just the apprentice program. Turns out that the journeyman and the masters and journeyman programs are mostly about running a bee club, and we're already doing that. So we didn't do any more of that because we're already doing it. I think that it's great to educate people about bees. That's called festooning. Isn't that the cutest thing?
Yeah, it is.
They all hold their little bee hands. It's part of, they just do it. They do it sometimes when they're swarming, and they do it when they're building new comb in the hive. The wax to build the comb actually comes out between these little segments of their bodies. And so when they're festooning, the wax comes out, some other bees can pull it off and start building comb. But I think it's just one of the real charming things that you notice when you work in a beehive is the little bees holding their hands. It's cute. We like to advocate for native bees as well. Isn't that a great bumblebee? It's a cute little bumblebee.
The one down here is the bumblebee on the lower.
It is, that little fat guy.
Yeah.
That's actually a European honeybee. Ken took that picture when we were in Scotland. I go to Scotland with this lovely man over here. And his sister and her husband were with us and they skipped and say, where's Ken? Oh, I don't know, he's outside. What's he doing? Looking at bees. Yeah, Scotland has these great bumblebees. They're called bombus, meaning bumblebee, magnus, meaning that giant one. They're
Yeah.
really cute little fuzzy.
This isn't a
That's not
Bombus
a-
magnus there. Yeah,
They look like that though.
yeah, little white butts.
See this little gray one up at the top? We have some that look a lot like that around here. We get a lot of calls on these in the springtime. People will say, oh, we got a swarm of bees. We go over there and it's these guys. These are a ground dwelling bee. They only essentially come out to reproduce and then they disappear again. They're out for about maybe 2 weeks,
3,
3 weeks.
3, yeah.
And they bounce around on the ground. Cute, they don't stand. They're just little gray bees. And then they disappear. They're just gone, back into the ground. The other one's called a sweat bee. There are a lot of different sweat bees. They're called sweat bees because they like your sweat.
Oh.
They'll land on your cheek and suck at the sweat. They can't stand. They're just little bees. Next picture. Yeah. I got somebody back there with this picture. Is that the greatest picture? This is a donkey. His name is Bonocco. He lives in Greece, or he did live in Greece. I don't think Bonocco is probably still with us. But his owner is a beekeeper and he didn't want poor Bonocco to be stung. So he devised an entire bee suit for him. I have a picture of a dog with a complete bee suit somewhere. There's several different kinds of bees, 3 in the regular hive. There's the queen bee, the worker bee, and the drone. The queen and the worker are both female. The drone is male. He's stubby, he's fat, he has no stinger, he's built like a tank, which is a good thing because his one function in life, besides having his sisters take care of him the entire time he's alive, they feed him, they clean him. Every afternoon about 2 or 3 o'clock, he leisurely leaves the beehive and flies up in the air to a drone congregation area where drones from all sorts of different hives congregate, that's the name, and fly around in these lazy circles with all the food they've been fed earlier, providing them fuel. You can hear them. You can't see them because they're way up there. You can see them if you pick up a pebble and throw it up in the air, because they think that that's a virgin queen bee flying by and they will fly to mate with her. And you can see them. But if they don't mate, they just go back to the hive and get fed and cleaned up and taken care of until the next day. We call this whole process going to the drone bar. But the queen is made in a very specific way. They just take a regular egg and they make a particularly elongated cell. And they fill it with queen jelly, which is very hormonally rich, and they nestle that egg in there. Other than the shape of the cell, that's exactly how all bees are made. Queen jelly, nestle egg. Regular bees are then fed worker jelly, which isn't as hormonally rich, but she continues to be fed this very hormonally rich processed stuff that produces the queen with her ability to have massive ovaries and produce bazillions of eggs. She has a longer body than the other bees because her ovaries are huge compared to the rest of them. This is bee chromosomes. Male bees arise from sterile eggs. Only half the chromosomes. 16 for drones, 32 for workers and queens. By contrast, we have 64
46.
or 46, and none of us seem to survive with just half that many. Some of us do have one extra. People with Down syndrome, for instance, have one extra. But we don't, haploidy it's also not really uncommon in insects. It's a great technique whereby the queen insect, the insect laying the eggs, gets to really influence the genetic potential in the community. So there's our cute little drone. See how cute and fat he is? This is him mating with the queen on the wing. This little virgin bee who's takes 16 days to make one. And
yeah.
Then she emerges and she goes around the hive. And she kills all the other baby queens. It's the hinder. There can be only one. And then she flies. And as long as the bird doesn't eat her or something bad doesn't happen, she goes back and runs the hive.
Well, she meet up with the drone party?
She goes to the drone congregation area too. And she will mate over the period of about a week with several different drones in order to get as much semen inside her as possible. Because she's only going to mate for this little short period in her life, and that's it. She never mates again. And she can live for 2 to 4 years. And in the high days of springtime, she can lay 2,000 eggs a day. Now, this is what happens to our buddy the drone after he does this. When he sees her, he gets so incredibly excited that all of this, his generative apparatus, as it could be called, pops out of the carapace of his body. Remember, he has an exoskeleton. All insects have exoskeletons. They're hard on the outside, soft on the inside. We're hard on the inside, soft on the inside. Yeah, this pops out and he mates with the queen. Then he falls away with all of this hanging out to the ground where he dies. And all his sisters go, "Oh, we're not doing that." So how does this all work? Well, this is really kind of cool. This is the organ in which this semen is kept. It's called a spermatheca. This is an empty one from a virgin queen. This one, as you can tell, has semen in it. She's been mated. And if we look at our picture, we can see that she has a little bright pink thing. That's the spermatheca. And these bright yellow things, and there are 2 of them, are her ovaries. She, like I say, she can lay 2,000 eggs a day in the springtime.
What's the tracheal net?
The tracheal net is, bees don't breathe through their mouths. Bees breathe through a series of little holes in the sides of their body. Their trachea are these little holes. And that tracheal net is just a little piece of one of those organs from the outside of the body to the inside. So when they do the dissection, they end up with this little chunk. They just wanted to know this wasn't part of that. It was just another piece of bee guts. Okay. But she has a stinger, but if that's turned into the ovipositor, she puts one egg in each cell. And sometimes it's amazing how many of them, you just look at these pieces of comb and they're just covered.
How many days in a row does she lay?
Starting,
Average?
they have brief periods where they don't lay. The rest of the time they lay year round. They don't lay for us from about 15th of August to about the 15th of September, when it's really hot. They don't lay, right before Christmas. About the 21st, they start laying again, very small numbers, from about, I'd say, the middle of November to the 21st or so of December, they don't lay. The rest of the time, they're laying some all the time.
But they control it. It's if they're bringing in nectar and pollen, she lays a lot of eggs. If they stop, she doesn't, and so it controls the workforce to food ratio. Yeah, and that's just sort of automatically done by all of bees in the hive. They may all make this decision. It isn't her. They feed her less and she lays fewer eggs, it all sort of fits together.
So that's how the whole bee sex thing kind of works. So then we have worker bees. Those are the girls. There's lots of them. This is an external hive. You think it looks like this, kind of hanging on the tree. It doesn't. It looks like that. You can see the comb, this beautiful white comb. It's just covered in bees. That's what they look like up close. They smell good. If they're happy with you, they smell very good. They smell like yeast, red yeast. They smell like wax and flowers and honey. And it just smells great. They get mad at you. They smell a little bit like skunks. It changes. Not everyone can smell it. Boy, I can smell it. Now, how bees see? Bees do not see in the same spectrum we do. They see more into the ultraviolet and less into infrared. So if you look at these flowers, those are actually pansies. And you can see how what they see will attract them right to where the nectar and pollen are on the flowers. They have those great big compound eyes, all of which feed to one essentially optic nerve. So they don't have a bunch of little images. They have one image. And that's what they get out of it. They also have ocelli, or the simple eyes. They have 3 of them on their heads. So each bee has 5 eyes. These little ocelli on the top actually help them maneuver in relation to the sun. These maneuver almost entirely when they're outside based on the angle of the sun. It tells them where they are. They have a great functioning ability to perceive where they are in relation to that angle of the sun, and they automatically come knowing how to code for the fact that it goes down every day, comes up every morning. But that ocelli, that's what those do. And they also work for looking and seeing things in the hive in the dark. Because again, they're using it for navigation. And there's always a little bit of light seeps in and they navigate by light with those. If you have lights on your house, you will sometimes have trouble with bees at night. We have a ring light on the back of our house. And we'll have to shut it off sometimes in the summer because the bees will keep coming to it. They really like light at night. They like it. That's a beehive. It's one of ours. And on this side is an infrared image of said beehive, which is this is the infrared version of how we see. We don't see infrared either, but we can transpose it with the camera. This is done by forward-looking infrared. And where it's really bright here, right in here, that's where the baby bees are. That's the brood nest. We use this little device to help us find bees in buildings. Because people really don't like it when you make a lot of holes in their house trying to find the damn bees. So we we bought one of these to help us out, 'cause it can be very challenging. Sometimes they'll go a long way before they go out. And then the nest is wherever there, but the hole is wherever there.
And they maintain about 94 degrees plus or minus a degree where they're actually making the new bees. So they can maintain that temperature either in the winter or in the summer. In the summer, they have to cool it off. And in the winter, the bees can move their wing muscles without moving their wings and generate heat into their bodies and generate up to 106 degrees inside the bee to help warm up the bees around them that are cooling off too much. So they can actually do it. And we've measured that in hives. And it's a straight line, 94 degrees. And so you know that hive's still going, and it's in the winter, maybe it's 20 degrees out or 30 degrees out, and you don't want to open it up. So you can use the infrared camera to see where the bees are at in the box.
Eyes in relation to the sun, and made me think about my college roommate had a math class where they had to do a calculation about the bee dance and how the bee is translating to the rest of the hive, the distance and the direction of where the honey is.
Of where everything is. They tell them all kinds of stuff with that. When they swarm, the bees will, the scouts go out and I don't know if I can tell this part later, but they actually go out and they get into a hole, and this bee crawls around in there, and she actually, in a spiral, she measures the size of the space. She goes back to the swarm. All you guys are the swarm, you're waiting. And I come back and say, I found this really great place. It's really, really great. You should go over there. It's right over there. Watch me. And you go, you all go there and you come back and you go, it's really great, you guys. And when a preponderance of bees who are flying out, they're called scouts, come back with the same message, they fly to that place instantly. It sounds like a train. It's great. And a swarm is a reproductive device by bees. It's not just a whole bunch of bees that have turned up in your lemon tree, because they're eating.
Are meat bees and yellow jackets the same thing?
Not quite, but pretty close. Yeah, they're very closely related. Meat bees dwell in the ground. Yellow jackets generally are more related to paper wasp and mud daughters.
Seems like we called them yellow jackets back in Wisconsin when I was growing up. And
They're all
they're not
kinds of
here
same,
and they.
same habits, exact same habits.
So in this picture here,
Yes.
do I see the end of, I guess, a stamen that the bee has got, that bright yellow thing?
Oh, no, I'll tell you about that. But your question? Go ahead. Okay. What we have here is a little dent in a bee's leg called the corbicula. And it means the honey or the pollen basket. And they actually get the pollen from the stamens and clean themselves off and pack it on there. And other bees will actually help clean them off and pack it on there. Because it's easier for them to fly with that on the leg than it is with it stuck all over them everywhere. They will fly with it all stuck all over them when they finally get the basket so full they can't do anything about it. But they've actually cleaned each other off and cleaned themselves off and piled it on there in the little basket. I don't know how I managed to make a slide where electrical fields happen, but I apologize. Anyway, bees both sense and make electrical fields. They use electrical fields to tell them where they are in the flower and where the pollen and nectar are. Nectar, it comes up from the plant, up through the bottom of the plant, up into the plant itself. Usually starts in the morning, it's usually done by about noon when the sun reaches its height. And then the plant quits pumping quite so much. But when it does that, it creates an electrical field. Because movement, friction, makes electrical field. The bee can sense that. She has several organs on her body that do that. The antenna being just one of them, but also some of those little hairs are also electrical sensory hairs. And she can do that. The other thing is that by vibrating their wings, they can create an electrical field that will make the plant pump. Cool, I love that. Bees can generate up to 1,000 volts per meter, per square meter, actually.
Cubic meter.
Cubic meter. I always say square, you always say cubic.
Yeah.
Cubic meter. And they do that when they're swarming. Mostly because we think they do it specifically so they don't run into each other when they're flying close together. It's a way of warning, you know, I know you're there, you know, I'm there. It's like fish have that line along them. Birds do this to a certain extent as well. We don't know if they're using electricity quite the way bees do, but bees do, and they can measure, it's as much as thunderstorms can generate. It's a really big charge when they're moving. Let's see, they also can do the waggle dance, and that stimulates an electrical field as well. So a lot of, we think bees do a lot of stuff with electricity, which is why we used to have a whole lot of electrical devices in our bee hives. We had a scale and we had a thermometer, and they all ran on Bluetooth. And we decided that we probably should pull those because we didn't really want to be messing with the electrical fields that they needed to be generated. It's why you don't see bees under electrical lines. They just find it successful. And we all went, oh, it must be the G2. It's not, it's just pure electricity. Yes.
So, this summer, or last summer, not this one, there were a lot of that looked like a bee that was the Sphinx.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, moth, so it's a moth. It's not-
There is a
it's bee.
There's a bumblebee moth and there's a sphinx moth. And bumblebee moths are same size as sphinx moths, except they have yellow and black stripes. They look like bees, they're really big bees that somebody squished a little bit.
Yeah, they're flat,
They're kind of flat.
flat body. They're not round like that.
See. Oh, they're just amazing.
And they're, you know, like they're really called up, they're.
Hospice.
The Boston, I was like, so long. Oh, yeah, I was like, so this long. These are big, these are big moths. We had a really big moth in our garage a couple of years ago. More?
Okay.
Maybe more?
Maybe more. See if I can get more.
No. There we go. Inside the hive. Well, it's dark. What can I tell you? Chemistry is how bees get around in the hive. Queen communicates with the workers to chemistry. They communicate back with her the same way. This is a picture of bees inside somebody's house. This is sheetrock. Oh, wow. This is bee comb in the wall. That's that black tar paper stuff that you have outside of the wall. That's capped bee larva. This is honey. This is honey. There's bees down here. But until we ripped the sheetrock off, it was dark in here, and that's what those bees knew, and that's how they were managing to get around and tell each other what was going on and what they needed to do, what was happening. Nobody celebrated. That is thankful. Would that honey be ever in that wall? Absolutely, as long as I can get it through. Okay. Sometimes when you fill it out, it's got mice in it, it's the mice that sometimes get in the wall. But yeah, entirely other than you can crush it. Rather, you can't extract it like you do with the honey in the machine. It keeps the stuff separated. But yeah, this, you know, it's yummy. It's
You know, the hybrid, instead of the species we have are hybridized with ours. Does that help with resistance to the mites?
probably, except that we don't have enough genetics to really cover these except all right.
Yeah, we're less than 25% of the genetics available in the United States. If you look at what's specifically like in the Caucasus, where it's probably the most true to original bees, and we just don't have that genetics, and so it makes it much harder. they've found that in some places that are where they've actually been able to get rid of the mites, the bee genetic population has dropped by 90%. So but it's still successful. Yeah, it worked. And they can figure out how to control the mites.
We talked a little bit about one of the emitter voltage. And two, why you looking at reviews. Like you met with the valley.
Oh, yeah. Well, nutrients, pesticides are sort of the latest and greatest thing. They were just versions of nicotine, which is a very poison to the food use. It can also be used as an anesthetic, which is another type of basis. The index on the whole, the chloride, I mean, several others are really being highly in screwing up with that new chemistry thing. We're pretty sure that if they pull in a lot of nectar, it's contaminated with the what they end up with are things that can't be everything. And I'm really good job, and everyone has to do it. While we're walking down in the valley, things well, we take the United States has some odd million acres of almond trees here.
Yeah, 1.75 million acres. Actually,
You need 2 beehives per acre to pollinate. 2. So let's just put it this way, that's way more than some here. And what they do is they walk them on semi-trucks and bring them to California, all the way from New England, from the Mid-Atlantic, all the way down into Florida, all across Texas, southern Saskatchewan, north and South Dakota, Montana, Washington, they all come in on top. I've heard it said that it's the largest like on the back, so.
get 400 on a flatbed. So give you, try to do the math as how many flatbed trailers that is. It's just insane.
And these states, we see states right now, they're like that. They're stating them to the almonds, they'll be on the almonds put up, using that person away. They will go other places, they don't just throw them out. We do however throw most of the money out, because it's heavy, and I can ride around. Yes.
Notice on the way to Oakdale that all the hives are being set up. They're all different colors. Why?
They belong to different people, they were painted with paint, that we all buy at Lowe's, done scratch.
Has nothing to do with the bee.
Has nothing to do with.
Oh, well, it does. If you vary the color, they're more likely to come back to that color.
Yeah.
So bees do drift, and they don't always go back to the hive they came from, especially in wind. And if they come in with food, then they're allowed in the hive. And if they come in empty, they're not. It's kind of like going to a party, and you come with beer, you get in the door. If you didn't bring the beer, you're out. And bees do the same thing, so they spread disease that way, unfortunately. Yeah.
Quite for a long time, it's still pretty, but it turns out that bees really like some color. They see blue, they see yellow, they don't see red. Red is not really used for the bees, but some shades of green that they kind of see. So you take those colors and it helps them to figure out what their hives are. They also like these times. They did on in front of their hive. And some of the checkerboards on it that also they really like. These are fascinating. Oh, really fascinating. It's fun thing to do. Until we became really active in the bee part, it was kind of a hobby. Now it's kind of like our second job. Ken and I take bees out of buildings. That involves water, and cutting holes in walls and fall around and really places. We might think it looks like. But it's really interesting, and it's really helpful to people. If you get bees in your house, it is a real problem for your house. Bees create, they create moisture. And metabolic moisture. And that moisture can cause parts of your house to degrade. And eventually, once it gets a little soft in there, they will eat these two rocks in the house and end up in the dining room. Or someplace else in the house, in my house. And so you really should go get somebody out there to get them out. Poisoning them doesn't work. If you kill a lot of things in the wall, it is how exactly like poison. It's a whole lot of dead animals rotting in the wall. Where if you have probably has 10, 12, 20 pounds of bees, depending on how big it is.
Well, and then you've got all the honey and pollen and nectar and all that other stuff, and it all just degrades.
Lots. It smells really nice like that.
I think we ought to think about Wendy, right?
You can ask no person. Well, I was thinking, here's about the house, my grandmother's house was single. And you could see the trees outside, somehow they got into the house and there was the dining room, there was doors. And sometimes when you open the door, you just sit down. Oh, yeah. They get lit, it's really. Thank you very much.